the time. You've got to, please, stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Welcome to another episode of the Third Channel, Home of Horror. I'm Brian, along with Dave. Before we get started, we would like to thank our show sponsors, Horror Express Studios and J3 Jason Costumes. On this week's episode, you chose, we viewed, and we are going to review the classic Stephen King's Pet Sematary.
What is this place?
I brought you here to bury Alan's cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judd?
I had my reasons.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the pet cemetery.
What did we do tonight, Judd?
What we did, Lois, was a secret.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you.
You're thinking thoughts best not thought of.
Daddy's gonna do something really bad.
You're thinking of putting him up there. Don't deny the thought hadn't crossed your mind.
Come back to me, Gage. Come back to us.
Paramount Pictures presents Stephen King's all-time best-selling tale of horror, Pet Sematary.
Dave,
Yes.
how are you today?
I'm well, sir. How are you? How are
I'm
you?
good.
Coming out of spooky season. Halloween's over. We're looking
Yeah.
at November
I
now.
can't-
and
It's like Thanksgiving's in 2 weeks. I can't believe
I know. I know.
It's-
And I just saw on TV, the news today, that the price of turkeys are going to be insane. They were showing a turkey at a local market for $72. And I don't know if that was a 15 or a 20-pound turkey. Everything has gone up through the roof. So in that sense, November is going to be a horror too.
it. Yeah, well, I got my free turkey from Giant Food Market, so I don't have to worry
Nice.
about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if you spend a certain amount, I guess you get one free, right?
Yeah, and I didn't realize I spent a certain amount. I went to go I got like a gallon of milk, and it says, "Oh, you got your free turkey." I'm like,
Perfect.
"Wow!"
Perfect,
With
perfect.
inflation, I guess it makes it easier.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bad year for turkey eating, I think, for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
in any case, yeah. So this is episode 4 for
Yeah,
us.
number 4.
Choose, view, and review. And I thought we'd do a little different twist, even though it's horror. Book adaptations of Stephen King's,
Which is a
I don't-
great topic, I guess you could say, because Stephen King's had a lot of books turn into films, some good, some not so good.
right.
And again, I felt like the underdog won because you have Carrie, you have Christine, two of the and The Shining, 3 top contenders, and Pet Sematary came in.
Yeah, and this was a movie that was doomed in the beginning. It wasn't supposed to be made. It sat on a shelf, and I think it was trying to think of the producer's name, but we'll get into it. Mary Lambert actually directed it, which was a big thing back then too for a female director.
Well, and if you look at her resume, she was a music video director.
Right.
And this was her first theatrical film, and she like you said, it was very uncommon, but she kind of paved the way for other female directors. And but I'm looking at her resume, I'm like, she must have been good friends with Madonna, because she did basically like all of Madonna's early stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was beautifully filmed. The cinematography of some of that main scenery was pretty amazing. And I think King demanded that this be filmed in Maine at that time, because it was unheard of, because it was really expensive to get everything up there on top of it.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when the opening credits were rolling, it felt more like a TV movie quality.
Yeah, it did. But the thing about this film, and it's a close one to my heart, because it was one of those movies that I was old enough to see in theaters. I think I was
You
a year out of
graduated high school, right?
yeah, I was out of high school, and if I remember correctly, it was a double date night when I saw it, and I loved it. I loved it from day one. I think what was cool about this, every character in this film felt like its own story to start with. I mean,
Yeah.
from as little as Cage and Church the cat and Judd and they all had amazing little stories I felt to be told as themselves through this whole of who they are and what was going
Hmm.
on. And it was one of those things that I always watched come Halloween, spooky
Hmm.
season, and when it was on TV, and I'm going through local cable back then, and I would just stop wherever it was playing, and I'd watch it through and through.
Yeah.
But
The one thing I remember, not so much about the film, but I would say early 90s, there was the Stephen King book club, and they would have the commercial, and they would use in the commercial one of the scenes with Church when he's hissing and with the
mhm,
glowing eyes, and that hooked me right there. It's like, oh, I gotta join this book club.
right.
Um, but yeah, this is a I would say shortly after Pet Cemetery, then we had it, and then he had a bunch of TV miniseries, which I think it went from the big screen to the small screen, and then the fad of Stephen King movies was over, and some of them were just really bad, and a few were
Yeah.
made in the late 90s, early 2000, but we're on a resurgence now. We had Pennywise, or It chapters 1 and 2. We had
Right.
the remake of Pennywise, which wasn't really well received, and well, they have
Pennywise or
Salem's
Pennywise or Pet Cemetery?
Pet Cemetery. I'm sorry, Pet
Yeah,
Cemetery
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah,
um and then we have Salem's Lot, but that's been shelved for right now.
yeah. I think that it was Warner Brothers that shut that down, and they did a lot of shutting down. I think that new Batgirl movie got shut down by them,
That was
right?
a Yeah, that was the biggest mistake.
They were complete.
Warner's
Wasn't that complete?
It
It
was
was pretty
complete,
much
yeah, but it was Discovery that shut it down. Once they merged with Discovery, they shut a lot of things down. And I guess Discovery, they do a lot of scripted reality shows, and people
right.
are afraid that's where HBO is going to be going, more reality based shows. And I'm upset about the Batgirl for two reasons. One, we're going to see 89, well, not 89 Michael Keaton, but an older
Right,
89
right,
Michael
right.
Keaton, plus Brendan Fraser as Firefly. That's a character that hasn't been on the screen yet. And they just canceled Westworld, which I've only seen the first two seasons. That's the kind of show you have to pay attention when you're watching it.
Right.
But it was
That
a
was
fan.
based off the movie with what's his
Correct.
name?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Who was not Yul Brenner? Was it Yul Brenner? No.
yeah. Yul
Yeah,
Brynner.
Yul
Yeah,
Brenner.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Fantastic movie. I haven't seen the show, but I love the
the
movie.
show, the first season was great. And then they just once that's like I said, that's the type of show you have to pay attention,
Yeah.
because they do time jumps, but you don't really realize it, and that's how good it
Oh,
was.
understood.
But Ed
Yeah.
Harris was good as like the Yul Brenner character, but
Oh,
he
wow.
but he wasn't a robot though. They kind of role reversed it. So
I just
yeah.
saw him last night. I finally watched Maverick,
Oh, me
and
too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And
yeah,
Ed Harris, they're all getting up there, but they did a good job. They did
yeah.
a good job with the movie. It was really, really well done.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you think about it, it was kind of like almost like a remake of Top Gun,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but the aerial shots were just amazing
Oh, yeah,
when they were going against a fifth generation, and he did like that move, and they're like,
yeah,
"What the hell was that?"
yeah. It was
all,
pretty intense.
all
So
right,
we're here about Pet Cemetery, and
yes,
like we both said, I take it it's one of your favorites, or is it one of the up?
it's up there as far as Stephen King novels and whatnot. I would say it's in my top 10.
Okay,
Although how I love the Shining movie, it's my top 5 book though.
okay,
So because
yeah.
I just didn't
Well,
like the way Kubrick went.
a lot of the books are much different than the movies. With this one, if I can remember correctly, too, Stephen King obviously wrote it, but I think he also did the screenplay
He did the
also.
screenplay, and he pulled an
Yeah,
Alfred Hitchcock and had a small cameo in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he
Um.
pulled in his favorite band at the time too, the Ramones, to do Pet
Yes.
Cemetery.
Yeah.
He,
And the
I,
Ramon fans didn't care for it.
no,
To
no,
them it
no.
was like a sellout. Um.
Well, because they were a punk rock band,
Yeah.
you know.
And this movie also, like, another factor that gave me the creeps was Zelda. As a
Yeah,
kid, Zelda freaked me out.
that feared a lot. I think a lot of people at our age that were younger then, Zelda was always one that stood out to most of them. And to know that it wasn't a woman and played by a guy later
Yeah.
in life, I found that out,
Yep.
which made it even creepier, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but if I can remember correctly, this movie is getting a prequel.
A
I
series, yes, a prequel series. Yep.
Yeah, based on Judd,
Yeah.
which will be interesting because he did tell a little bit of his backstory during the movie, with burying his dog and the neighbor's son who died, I think, in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And he got the Purple Heart. I remember them saying they buried him into the pet cemetery, and he came back,
Yeah.
cannibalizing or whatever the case may be. And
Yeah.
so that should be an interesting point. They should have probably did that before the reboot, because I would have rather seen that than this reboot that came out.
Yeah. I agree. Like, Hulu had the 2-season. If you haven't seen it, it's called Castle Rock. Great.
Okay, no, have not.
It intertwines a lot of the characters from, well, the first season does, and the first season starts off at Shawshank Prison. So yeah.
Wow.
And the person that's doing a report for, like, the story, her last name is Torrance, so there's a relation there. Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's really
Gotcha.
cool. All right,
And
so
to bring myself up to par with this story again in the movie, I just want to throw in really quick, and we'll talk about it in the end. There is a documentary out called Unearthed and Untold, which I rented for $1.99 off of Amazon. And if you're a Pet Cemetery fan, I highly recommend you watch it. It's all, it tells you the whole backstory of how this almost didn't get produced and why it got produced and became into a full story.
And I want to say that this documentary was fan funded, like partially fan funded too.
I think so. Came
Yeah.
out in if I'm correct, 2017.
Okay.
I want to say, but
Okay.
it's got all the original cast members. And the funny thing is, like we were just saying before we jumped on here, I didn't know the daughter, Ellie, was a twin in this movie. And that was a shock to me because I just thought it was one girl.
They were both bad actors.
Oh yeah, very cringy.
Yes.
When you compare her next to her brother Gage, Gage, who was 10 times better of an actor, he was 3 or 4.
Not even. He was 21 months, I believe.
was he?
21
Oh, wow.
months. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right.
So yeah, let's get into the plot, and
Okay.
we'll do our thing, and then
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to talk about the development and production. So originally, the film rights were sold to George Romero in 1984 for $10,000. Would you, if George Romero did this, do you think we would have gotten a totally different product?
I mean, I know I'll get, well, George Romero, he's one of the grandfathers of horror, and
Yeah.
I am not a zombie fan. I hate
Okay.
to say it. I the only zombie movies I ever liked were the ones that ran, like 28 Days Later.
Okay.
And those frightened me. But
Yeah.
zombie movies aren't my thing. So for him to do a film like this, and I guess it is a zombie-esque if you think they're coming back from the dead, but they're
Yeah.
not. They're still coherent, and they still have just an evil aspect of who they were. I don't know. I don't know if his work is really dark enough to do something like this. I don't know.
Right.
Not like this was a very dark movie, but it had its moments, of darkness.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I can't. And what else? What else did he do other than his original zombie one? Was it Return of the Living Dead?
No. You had Night of the Living Dead,
Night of the Living Dead,
Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Pretty much, he did a lot of dead films.
Didn't he do a creep show? No.
He might have been. I think he might have been like a director on one of the.
Toby did the first one, but I thought Romero did the second one.
He was maybe a director of one of the shorts in the
Oh,
film,
okay.
but
All right.
yeah,
Jason West may know because he went to
right,
his school
right,
for
yeah,
but I don't know. I don't. I'm not gonna say I'm a fan of his work, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say if he would have done what route this would have won.
right. King had previously declined several other offers for a film adaptation. Romero eventually had to pull out of the production as he was busy with Monkey Shines. Development
Oh,
is another brutal one.
Oh yeah.
Development executive Lindsay Doran loved the finished script and advocated for it to be made at Embassy Pictures and then at Paramount Pictures after she became vice president of production there in 1985, which that's a big thing for a woman in the 80s to be head of something because, running a studio, that's, typically, and I'm not being sexist, a man thing,
At that time and era. Yeah, that was
definitely.
I mean, we are going into the 90s, so eyes were opening up a little bit more. But I'm sure she fought and worked very hard to get to that part.
Yeah, exactly. So she was told each time that there was no more demand for Stephen King films after the slew of adaptations from his novels were released in the early 80s. It was only during the 1988 Writers Guild of America strike that Paramount reconsidered because the studio was facing a possible shortage of new productions for 1989 release. Stephen King's script for Pet Sematary was finished and ready to go, so Doran was given the green light to obtain the rights for Paramount and start production. King, who had final say on the choice of a director, met with the studio's first choice of Mary Lambert. She impressed him with her enthusiasm for his novels and her commitment to stay faithful to his source material, which secured her the job. The original cut of the film delivered to Paramount's executive was judged to be too long, so excessive footage had to be removed. The original ending scene was more ambiguous. It showed only the undead Rachel entering the kitchen where Lewis is playing solitaire, leaving his fate uncertain. Although Lambert called this the more spooky, sad, tragic ending because the audience knows it's not going to be what he wants.
Let me stop you there. And to be honest with what you just told me, I would have liked that alternate ending because for him to jump up and just kiss this corpse of a wife, and the embrace and that bodily fluid that was flowing from her eye, I'm like, after all you went through with what you saw happen to your son and the cat, you're going to embrace your wife.
Exactly. Well,
unless he had a total mental breakdown, like
he did. I mean, by this time he was far gone. But you know what? I knew he loved his wife, but that relationship was strained, and I felt like
you saw that through the movie.
She was I think she was the reason. Like I don't think she wanted to move there.
She had a lot of baggage because of Zelda.
Her parents hated him. I wish they just gave us a little bit more backstory. Maybe it's in the book. I forget.
That's what was great about this because there were so many stories within a story. You had her parents' story, you had the Zelda story, you had Judd's childhood story, and then you had Missy, who was the housekeeper that hung herself.
Right.
She had a little story going on. So it was kind of cool how they kind of like pulled all these people into this wicked web,
Yeah.
And it was about death. How he was explaining to her, because they wanted to let their daughter know that the cat may not come back, and there was argument there. And then even when they went into the pet cemetery the first time, and Judd was talking about death amongst animals, the mother, she got upset because she was like, well, we don't need to explain that. And so there was all about life and death in this movie. And it was a really great concept. But yeah, going back to what you said, there was tension with them in the beginning, the husband and wife, Lois.
Yeah. All right. So, although Lambert called this the more spooky, sad, tragic ending because the audience knows it's not going to be what he wants, she's not coming back as his wife. The studio decided it was too tame, and at their request, it was reshot to be more graphic. Rachel's appearance was made far more gruesome with special prosthetic effects, and she kills Lewis at the end, as alluded to his screams when the film cuts to black. Casting.
So wait, more gruesomeness other than the Achilles heel being cut.
Oh, and then the mouth. Yeah.
And then out,
And then the
and
throat
the
getting
gates. Yeah, it had to be more gruesome than what we've already saw.
right. Initially, Paramount executives wanted a pair of twins to play the role of Gage, like those chosen to play Ellie, which was the more cost-effective option. However, Lambert was very impressed with 3-year-old Miko Hughes, who she felt was a natural talent despite his young age, so she lobbied the studio to accept her choice. She also faced resistance from executives over her choice to cast Fred Gwynne, whom the studio believed audience would not take seriously because of his fame as Herman Munster. After first auditioning girls for the role of Zelda, Lambert changed course and ended up casting Andrew Hubestek in the role because she felt having a grown man playing the role of a teenage girl deformed by spinal meningitis made the character more frightening. Filming, as stipulated when selling his rights, Pet Sematary was shot in Maine, where the story was set, and King himself wrote the screenplay. Production was based in Ellsworth, and auditions held at the Grand Theater, where several hundred locals auditioned to be extras or for small spoken roles. King himself was very involved in the filming process, consulting with Lambert frequently on her ideas for the story and any deviations from the script she wished to make. The house used for the Creed's home is a private residence near Hannock, while Judd's house across the street was actually a facade constructed around an existing house that was insulated with fireproof material so that the mock-up could be burned around it. The interiors of the Creed house were recreated on a soundstage in Ellsworth, while the interiors of Judd's house were built inside the Bangor Arsenal. The approach to the Meekamekh, if I said that right, burial ground was filmed at an abandoned granite quarry on Mount Desert Island in Arcadia National Park, while a hilltop near Sedgwick was the site of the Meekamekh ground itself. Other
I guess
locations,
that's the local Native American tribe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Other locations include a forest near Ellsworth for the Pet Cemetery, Mount Hope Cemetery in Bangor for the graveyard scenes, and Ellsworth Town Hall, which stood in for the Hospital of the University of Maine, Orano. The music of the film features 2 songs by the Ramones, one of Stephen King's favorite bands. Sheena is a punk rocker, appears in a scene, and Pet Sematary, a new track written specifically for the picture, plays over the credits. The song Pet Sematary became one of the Ramones' biggest charting hits, reaching number 4 on Billboard's Modern Rock Tracks list.
Wow.
Despite being, in the words of AMG, reveled by most of the band's hardcore fans. Lambert was better known for her work directing music videos, especially those for Madonna, including Like a Prayer and Material Girl. Through her work in the music industry, she was friends with the Ramones. She approached them about recording a song for the film, and they agreed to write and perform Pet Sematary, which is featured in the closing credits. Release. The Los Angeles Times wrote that the film defied the critics and opened at blockbuster levels. The film grossed $57 million in the United States. So
it made Mugu bucks against what it actually cost him.
Yeah.
But so that went to show you that there were Stephen King fans out there wanting more.
Yeah.
And going back to the plot, I would have liked them to dwell on the Native American history part. I think it would have been cool to have, like, and I don't know if it would be politically incorrect then and now, but ghostly formations of Indians or an old tribesman that lived in the area that could have told the story. Something to really give us a little bit more substance.
You know what? Maybe in the prequel, we might get something like that,
Yeah, I would have loved to have known the back culture of it all, like, the ground is Sawa, that whole thing. And I would love to know, even if they went back farther, to show how the Native Americans buried their dead there and why the ground went sour, or what was the purpose. Were they reanimating their dead, or what the whole back history of that was. But in that documentary I watched, everything that you said, they have a lot of behind the scenes footage of filming in Maine and using people and the locals from Maine in that movie.
Oh, okay.
Which was, King is from Maine and a huge advocate, and most of his movies, they have a tidbit of Maine mentioned in them, one shape or form.
Yes. All right. So let's get into the plot. So as we had said, when the opening credits were going, we're kind of giving like pan shots of the Pet Sematary, and we have voiceovers of the kids for each animal, and actually one of them, which we'll find out later, Spot, is Judd's dog. So we are introduced to the Creed family: Lewis, Rachel, their children Ellie and Gage, and their pet cat Church. Moved from Chicago to rural Ludlow, Maine, after Lewis accepts a job as a physician with the University of Maine. They befriend their neighbor Judd Crandall, who takes them to an isolated pet cemetery, misspelled Cemetery with an S, in the forest behind the Creed's new home. I'm figuring, like, I don't know where the S spelling came from. Maybe because pets
kid did it.
Yeah.
The pet cemetery was actually real, and it inspired King on one of his walks.
Yeah.
He saw it, and it was spelled that way. And from the owner of the pet cemetery where the property was on, she gave the job to a local guy who wasn't very book smart, lacked education.
Okay.
And it was an accident.
Oh.
It was an accident. And they just kept it out of kindness. They didn't want to offend him, and they kept it as is. But without knowing that story, I always thought it was the way a child would spell it.
Okay. Right.
That was my assumption when I first saw the movie. I'm like, oh, S Cemetery. It was probably a child misspelling.
Right.
But the backstory was just as cool to hear, So
I have to say, though, even before they go to Pet Cemetery, they get the worst Parents of the Year award because not once, but twice, they don't watch Gage, and we know what the final outcome is. And if it wasn't for Judd in the beginning...
And let me tell you, coming from Chicago, like, I hope they didn't do that in Chicago, because there was 10 times more 10 times worse of getting hit by a car.
Yeah. So they live on a very busy road, which the truck route. Yeah. And even though, like, there's one trucking company, they only used one truck for all the scenes. They all look the same. I doubt, like, a trucking company would have the same exact truck color for every single one, but
exactly.
And that's one of the reasons why Pet Cemetery was formed, because that road, unfortunately, a lot of kids lost their little loved ones, and soon we'll have human loved ones as well. That was a powerful scene, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, that was and the truck driver they actually chose, they did pick at a truck stop. The guy that was actually did that scene was just an actual local truck driver.
Oh, that's cool. That's
cool. Yeah.
All right. So, so the next day, Lewis is going to work at his new job at the local university, where he encounters Victor Pascal. And I'm sorry, but okay, if you were hit by a car, why are you taking him to the local doctor? Someone should call 911. They teach you in CPR and first aid, when there's a traumatic incident, you don't move the person, you call 911.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, it was a university, and I think from the look of him, he was a jogger, and he got hit by a truck, they said. So he was probably on that truck route running. And, when you're dealing with a bunch of kids and panicking and there's no cell phones, the first thing they can think of is probably take them into the local doctor in the university. Yeah. But I loved his character. Pascal was a great character.
He was creepy looking. Yeah, losing
the blood and the practical effects was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
So, like you said, he was a jogger who was mortally injured after being hit by a truck. He warns Lewis about the cemetery before dying, calling Lewis by name, though they have never met. That night, Pascal appears to Lewis as a ghost and leads him to the cemetery, warning him not to cross the barrier because the ground beyond is sour. Lewis awakens, assuming it was a dream, but notices his feet are covered in dirt. They ain't just covered in dirt. The whole bed sheets are all dirty.
Yeah, I mean, like, she slept through that all night.
I know, and she didn't.
Like, you didn't feel that?
Yeah.
And then he tries to cover it up, and he just rolls it up and throws it down the hamper chute. Like, how would she explain that? Like, what the hell did you do last night? And then he slept in his medical clothes, his scrubs when he came home. You're a doctor. You just, what, you jump in the shower? The ground isn't sour. Your shower is sour. You're sour.
So during Thanksgiving, while the family is gone, Church is run down on the highway. Realizing Ellie will be devastated, Judd takes Lewis behind the pet cemetery and deep into the woods where they reach an ancient Micmac burial ground. Judd instructs Lewis
Which
to
let me stop you there
yeah.
because with everything that Judd went through in his youth, and why I know what he was trying to do is a good deed because his daughter wasn't ready to lose their cat, but like just a little inkling would be like, why would you do that to this man you don't even know? And
Well,
no,
I'm going to get to that in a second. In my notes, it's saying that even though Judd appears to be nice, he's actually the bad one, where Pascal's the good one. You know?
that must be explained in the book
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I didn't get that feeling at all
I
in the
mean,
movie.
yeah, because if you had two experiences with this burial ground, why would you? I don't think
Temp-
he intentionally did it to harm Lewis, because it's Ellie and it was her cat and she's so young, and he just probably remembers how painful it was for him when
yeah,
Spot died.
unless there was this weird force driving him to do it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Who knows?
Um, all right. So they go to the burial ground, which is like deep in the woods, up the quarry, and you gotta climb like a cliff. Judd
Which
instructs.
he falls more than the old man does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like this guy who's a smoker. He's like almost 7 feet tall. He's
yeah.
springing around, and Lewis falls like two or three times
Right,
getting to the burial
right.
ground.
So Judd instructs Lewis to bury the cat and warns him not to tell anyone about what they have done. The next day, a reanimated Church returns to the house. He now stinks, moves sluggishly, and is vicious towards Lewis. Judd explains that as a boy, he revived his pet dog, and that although the cat might be different, it will save Ellie the grief of losing a pet. I love when he's taking a bath and a rat just falls into the
Yeah,
tub.
yeah. It
Yes,
was funny. That prop showed up at one of the horror conventions, and Dale, I can't pronounce his
Dale
name
Midkiff.
properly. Midkiff was
Yeah.
there, and it was in a acrylic enclosure, and he autographed it along with uh, uh, Denise Crosby
Okay.
and Nico Hughes. They all signed it for this guy, and I got to see it. It was at the New Jersey Horror Con.
Oh,
I was,
really? Oh,
and I
shit.
wanted to talk to the guy. It was the first con I ever did, which I had a run in with Dale Midkiff. Midkiff, is that his name? Midkiff.
Midkiff.
Yeah, he was running off to use a restroom, and I asked him a question, which I'll bring up later, and I talked to you about it. And yeah, it was the first New Jersey Horror Con I went to, and I was running to the guy that had him sign all that, but he had gotten out of the hotel already to ask him where he got the original rat prop from that movie,
Yeah,
but it didn't happen. But it was very cool to see.
that's awesome. All right, so sometimes later, okay, so now the family, they're having a picnic out on the side of their house, not too far from the truck road. And again, they don't pay attention to their poor son. He's flying a kite, it gets away from him. He's trying to chase after it, and Judd warns Lewis,
Lewis, the road, the road.
And dude,
And they're still laughing it up, and it's
yeah,
like the reaction time was just like
and you got
great,
outrun by a little 2-3
great
year old.
parroting, great
Yeah.
parroting.
But it's for what they didn't show. I mean, you see the
Oh,
truck, you see the truck break, and then you
the
see like
flashbacks.
the flashbacks, and then the little shoe, and then Dale, I thought, was really good when he did the
yeah. It's slow motion. He's holding
yeah,
it,
like
and
that was it
that
was it
was
was very
brutal.
sad. And
Because
then
again, going back, you just don't like we talked about Halloween 3. You just don't do that to kids, you know.
yeah, and then we were at the cemetery, and of course the father-in-law is blaming him
Oh,
for this, and they
and the
get
coffin tips over, and
he his father-in-law, like, he pushes father-in-law back and he falls into the coffin, and it falls down, and why isn't it locked? I don't know.
you see his little hand
His
pop
little,
up.
yeah. And that just makes the wife even go like even more crazier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
all right, so let me see. Judd anticipates that Lewis is considering burying his son in the Micmac ground, although Lewis denies it. Judd believes that introducing Lewis to the ritual ground arose the malevolent forces present there, which caused Gage's death. He tells him the story of a local named Bill Baderman who buried his son Timmy in the Mi'kmaq ground after he was killed in World War II. Timmy returned as a malevolent zombie, terrifying the townsfolk. A group of men, including Judd, tried destroying Timmy by lighting the Baderman house on fire, only for Bill to perish with his son. Judd insists that the burial ground is evil and Lewis must not bury his son there. After the funeral, Rachel and Ellie leave for Chicago while Lewis remains home, ostentatiously to take care of loose ends. Despite Pascal and Judd's warnings, Lewis exhumes his son's body and buries him at the ritual site. And that was another sad scene where he's just holding Gage's body at the cemetery.
Yeah, after he dug him up. Yeah. And the documentary, the behind the scenes, they showed you there was like 2 or 3 dolls, life-size dolls of Gage that they used.
I wonder if those still exist.
Yeah, I haven't seen them like floating around in prop stores or the props area.
Okay.
Speaking of props, you follow him, the guy that does the on the film scene locations. Chris, is his name Chris Hound Horror? No, what was he did the Halloween 3 where he visited the film locations for Halloween 3.
You talking about Sean or Sean Sean Clark?
Sean Clark.
Yeah, the horror Hollow Grounds, something
like that.
Yeah,
he owns one of the original props from Pet Cemetery.
Oh, nice.
I saw him on his YouTube channel, and he owns the one where Fred Gwynn gets sliced across the mouth.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he only paid like $2,000 for it.
Wow.
He got lucky with that one, but it has all these little tubes on it because it's like from here down to Fred Gwynn's sculpt, and it's silicone. And when Gage slices him, you see it open,
Right.
And he actually has that prop. Yeah.
He's got excuse me. He's got a lot of great stuff.
Oh yeah. He's been around a while now.
He's probably about your age, I think. So
yeah. He's been doing visiting film locations for horror since 1988, 89.
Yeah. All right. So Pascal in Chicago, Pascal appears to Ellie in a dream and warns her that Lewis is about to do something terrible. Rachel is unnerved by her daughter's dream, but can only reach Judd when she calls, who tells her Lewis is not home. She decides to return to Maine, much to Judd's alarm. That night, a reanimated Gage returns home and steals a scalpel from his father's bag. He taunts Judd before slashing his Achilles tendon and his mouth before biting his throat, killing him. Rachel returns home and is lured into Judd's house by the voice and specter of her dead sister, Zelda, only to discover that she is actually seeing Gage holding a scalpel. In shock and disbelief, Rachel reaches down to her to hug her son, and he kills her. So let's talk about Zelda.
Yeah.
So earlier in the film, Ellie talks, she's talked to Lewis about Zelda, but I guess she's never really talked to him about the night that she died. And in the book, Zelda's only like, I don't know, like not even a teenager, like 11 or 12. Although in the movie, she looks a lot older.
A lot older.
If you happen to see when she's at her parents' house, there's a little blonde girl like in a dress, like a blue dress, like an old Victorian painting. That was Zelda. So, and that kind of foreshadows.
And then it portrays Gage is also in like a little boy blue outfit with a top hat.
Yes.
I can't remember if it's in Judd's house. And then he manifests into this little outfit because he's wearing that little blue outfit.
Yeah, that's in Judd's house when
was that what he was buried in?
It wasn't what he was buried in, but that's what he was wearing before he killed his mom. Because I want to say he had a little cane or something
and a top hat.
Yeah, and a top hat.
Because the weird thing is when she entered the house, there was all this moss and mold growing on. They turned it into this weird dream-esque moment, And as she's going up the stairs, there's a painting, and it looks like Gage,
right?
The boy in blue. I think it's a famous painting. It's a velvet suit, and
Yeah.
he's a top hat. And then the next scene, I think Dale Metcalf comes bursting into the house, and she falls from the rafters, hung.
And then the dummy falls after that.
Yeah. And then Gage comes walking out with this little outfit. Like
Yeah.
it was a very, very bizarre moment.
It's just, it's the effect of this whole thing just basically driving him crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
So yeah,
basically
going back to Zelda, I mean, yeah, she dwells on the story of her story a little bit more in comparison, I think, to the book. I'm not too sure if the book dwelled on it too much, but
basically Zelda was like the family's hidden secret, almost like
dirty secret.
almost like the Kennedys per se. And they left Ellie, or not Ellie, Rachel, to care for her when they weren't
She was
home.
what, 8 years old?
She was very young. And Rachel.
Yeah. And how she explained, I was crying when she died, but actually I think I was laughing.
Yeah, she wasn't
she was
choking.
relieved.
Her body was just like contorting on itself. But when she's in the book, like when she's leaving the house, people outside hear what's going on, and they thought I was crying, but I was actually laughing. But like in the movie, you just have the kids, like children of the corn, standing down in the
standing there, like like let's just go in and it's not our house and see what's going on.
Yeah.
But the girl that played the younger version of the
Rachel?
mother,
The mom.
Rachel.
Yeah.
The mom. They found her in local Maine during that 700 cattle call.
Okay.
She was just a local girl that they
Nice.
found to play her part.
That's cool. Yeah, that would be like on my bucket list to do, like the Stephen King movie tour, like all the film locations. That'd be something really cool.
I mean, a lot of people, I think he's cool with it too. A lot of people go to his house to.
Well, I don't think he lives at that house anymore.
Oh, no.
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think guess the movie, I forget. I think he did something with the filming location tour, and I want to say every so often they turn it into an Airbnb or something like that.
No, I'm talking. Oh, you mean his personal home?
Yeah, with the gargoyle. With the gargoyle.
Oh, yeah. And the fence with the yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, waking up from his sleep, Lewis notices Gage's muddy footprints in the house and discovers his scalpel is missing. Receiving a phone call from Gage that he has played with Judd and Mommy, and now I want to play with you.
Oh, that was creepy as hell.
He fills 3 syringes with morphine and heads to. What the hell is morphine going to do to any? I mean, morphine's like a painkiller. I thought he had like.
How do you know that's what it was? Did it say on the bottle?
I that's what in Wikipedia had told me. So
maybe
I thought it was like the stuff that puts animals to sleep or something.
Well, wasn't that what ended up killing Bela Lugosi? Wasn't he a drug addict?
He was a big drug. Yeah, he was a big time drug addict.
I thought morphine was his drug of choice.
Yeah, it was.
But I guess if you overdo anything,
no, I think it might have been opium, not morphine. So, okay. But I guess,
before he does it, he kills the cat first. He throws him a steak.
Yeah,
and that looks real. I really think they drugged that cat.
I think I might have some notes in there about the cat because cats are very hard to train. So they had 3
because when he drugged him, that cat.
They might have sedated him. Yes, I think they might have sedated that one cat.
Yeah, they have multiple, and that's what Dale Metcalf was saying. He goes, the kids were great to work with. It was the damn cats. He goes,
right. So that was probably like his real reactions after like Bad Church came.
Oh my god!
And the way I love how they did Church's eyes, like that glow.
Yeah, and they explained that in the documentary. The way they did that was the filter that they use on the lens for dark filming. They turned around, which actually then reflected light. And it wasn't CGI. It was just this filter that they used, and luckily it just picked up the cat's eyes like that.
Oh, nice. So all right, so he first comes across church. He kills a cat with the injection before entering the house. Gage taunts him further, and Lewis is startled by Rachel's body hanging from the attic before Gage attacks him. After a brief battle, Lewis overpowers Gage and injects him with a morphine syringe. He then lights Judd's house on fire, leaving it to burn as he carries Rachel's body from the fire.
Which I
Pascal,
guess coming back from the dead, it makes you super strong because Cage was like able to
you know
lift
what? They always
Rachel
say
off.
who would win in a fight, Chucky or the Leprechaun? What about Chucky or Gage?
Yeah, I mean, he lifted his mom up to put her on a noose,
Yeah.
and then to take down Fred Gwynn, who's like, over 7 foot, probably 220 pounds.
Well, I'm sorry, but a swipe to the Achilles, I think, will take
Yeah, that'll
anyone
do it
down.
to you. That'll do it
Yeah.
to you.
Pascal appears and warns Lewis not to make it worse, but despite his warnings, Lewis, grief-stricken to the point of insanity, believes that he waited too long when he buried Gage, but burying Rachel will work this time because she had died just hours ago. That night, Rachel returns to Lewis and the couple embrace.
I love the philosophy, and as a doctor,
Right.
these are people in the medical. He's from the medical world, medical field. He's like, yeah, I'll just put her in the ground and she's fresher, but she'll come back normal.
Yeah. Okay, so this one I think you would like. So we're going to get into trivia. The original screenplay featured the Wendigo, a Native American demon that was mentioned in the novel but was ultimately cut from the film. Its presence is implied only twice. First, in the scene where Lewis is walking through the woods at night and hears something large knock down a tree. And second, when Judd first takes Lewis up to the Indian burial ground, there is some kind of loud crash deep in the forest, followed by a long, almost feminine howl. Judd says that it's only a loon, but it's clear that he does not entirely believe it himself. Bruce Campbell was the first choice for the role of Lewis Creed. I don't know how that would have went.
He's got such comic relief in him when he does roles. I've never seen him do a serious role, Bubba Hotep and all these other roles. And Escape from LA, a lot of people don't realize Escape from LA, he was the plastic surgeon in that movie. But yeah, I can't see that. But the Wendigo, I have read that, and they did talk about that in the documentary, which is another cryptoid that I'm fascinated about. I think that's more of a Canadian one. But there was a movie that came out a year and a half ago that I was waiting so long to see that had to do with the Wendigo, and it was a really big letdown. Was I think it was called Antlers.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Beautiful practical effects, really well looking for a Wendigo, but the script and the story just lacked so much luster to it. It was like another monster story with no really idea of where it came from or what it is.
Gotcha. All right. So over the years, critics have frequently voiced concern over the impression that being in the film must have left on young Miko Hughes. On the contrary, his parts during the horror sequences were shot separate from the more disturbing elements and violent action. He was later edited into these scenes while a child dummy was used during the more intense action footage. Since cats are difficult to train, the film crew ended up using 9 cats, a jumper, a snarler, and a cuddler. No cats were harmed during filming. The funny
thing is, going back to Miko talking about himself in the documentary, he says he remembers nothing of the filming other than flashbacks that happen on occasion of happiness, like when Dale Metcalf, you obviously have to interact with this kid off set to build a bond. And he's like, it was nothing but these great fond memories that pop up on occasion in my mind that I remember. But just like Danny Torrance, the kid that was in The Shining, they isolated him entirely from the horror, and he had no idea he was filming a horror movie.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the cat's glowing eyes. So in the novel, Ellie is psychic, but Mary Lambert not convinced she was able to convey that in the film, which, because she was not great of an actress to begin with. Tom Savini turned down the chance to direct the film, which would probably been a lot gorier than it already was.
Has he directed films? I know he plays in a lot of films. He
directed the 89 or 90 Night of Living Dead remake, which wasn't that. I actually like it. Tony Todd was in it.
That was really gory. Was it where they ripped that guy apart? his whole torso, and they dig into him, and he's still
Oh, no,
alive.
no, 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 no. You're thinking of Dawn of the Dead
But that was
or
his
Day of
work.
the
Yeah.
Dead. Day of the Dead. That was his work. He actually
Okay.
directed the remake of Night of Living Dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we've already talked about the actual events, so we won't go back into that. But basically, his daughter's cat was killed, hit by a car. So he took a lot of that emotional outburst and put it into the Ellie character. And then Joe Hill, his son, ran into the road as well. So yeah. And the character of Judd Crandall was based on the elderly neighbor that lived across the road from King. Also, there was like you said, there was an actual pet cemetery, which we won't talk about that. So Mary Lambert sees Victor Pascal as the good angel and Judd as the bad angel. She says, as a friendly old man is the one Lewis should be ignoring. His wardrobe, especially the large hooded jacket he's wearing when Church is found dead, is meant to suggest the darkness. In the book, there are several callbacks to Stephen King's The Shining, some of which carry over into the film.
You can feel that. You can feel that.
Victor Pascal calls Lewis Doc, which was Danny's name, Danny Torrance. And throughout the film, it's shown that the Creed family suffer from nightmarish visions and premonitions, implying that they all have the shining ability. So let's see.
I mean that was, you know what? Now that you've said that, it's true. Like when Wendy saw all those creepy things at the end, of what the hotel was actually revealing to her of the past trauma. So when she enters the house, like we were saying, it was the same moment. So there's a lot of similarities there. I never thought about.
In the novel, Rachel passed a sign for Salem's Lot showing the two are connected, and Gage's hand lurching from the grave is an homage to the end of Carrie. So yeah. All right. So now throughout the show, Dave, you talked about the documentary. It's called Untold and Unburied. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Unearthed. Let me see. Unearthed and Untold.
Okay.
Yeah. Unearthed and Untold. The path to Pet Cemetery, and you can rent it for $1.99 on Amazon. And there's a lot of behind the scenes filming. And the funny thing is, Fred Gwynne smokes like a chimney, like on set, off set. He was a smoker. It wasn't part of the thing, but you constantly see him lighting up.
Right.
But everybody, obviously, he has passed away quite a while now. But everybody just praised his performance and looked up to, in more than one way, up to him as this icon as they were filming. Everybody just loved working with him. And I mean, I can't see anyone else. I think you said you liked the John Lithgow.
I thought it was a good balance. Like, John Lithgow's a great actor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not a lot of, I mean, if you're looking for a character like the Judd character and who could do him, there really is an equivalent to Fred Gwynne.
Not today. I mean, I love John Lithgow. I mean, he plays great roles.
Like, my favorite John Lithgow film was in The World According to Garp, where he was
my God, great movie. Great movie. Yeah. And I loved him in Third Rock from the Sun.
I watched like maybe the first season and I just lost interest. But yeah, he was more recently in the Will Ferrell movie with him and Mark Wahlberg, where he played Will Ferrell's dad.
Yeah,
he was great in that film. Opposite.
Well, he just
did
a movie. He just did a series with Jeff Bridges called The Old Man.
I have it on my list. Okay, is he the handler of Jeff Bridges?
Yeah, it's another long story, but they were friends at one time, and Jeff Bridges is this ex CIA agent who goes in hiding. And anyway, they were fantastic together.
Okay,
I highly recommend that one.
So, did you learn anything like really shocking in this documentary that you never knew, or?
No, I mean, yes and no. Like the twins, I didn't know. I didn't know they were twins.
Were they in the documentary?
Yes,
both of them. Are they still annoying?
No, actually, they're beautiful. They're good. They're very good looking girls. But no, one actually did more vocalization than the other, you know. But when it came to acting part of it, I guess the other one did cut scenes or far
Okay.
off scenes and what have you. But yeah, I mean, I love the facade on Judd's house. I had no idea that was a. They did such a great job
Yeah.
aging it,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a real house. You
You know,
know,
and speaking of Judd's house, that's a 4 alarm fire there. Where the hell are the first responders?
well, that was the thing that they had mentioned is because they set the facade on fire, but there was a real person's home behind it, and some of those flames did damage the house. You
Oh
know,
wow.
and but the tree in the yard that she was swinging on in the opening on that tree wasn't there. They actually pulled it out from the woods and put it in place just for that scene. And the owners of the home afterwards tried very hard to keep the tree, but the tree just didn't take it and ended up dying.
Okay, that
You know,
stinks. That's
yeah,
weird.
yeah,
I never heard that. I was like, why don't they just build a tree?
yeah, yeah. They had to
That's
dig a hole, pull it
that's a
out from the
lot
woods.
of work, with
Yeah,
all the roots. Wow. Okay.
that's hot. That's
I'm gonna
Hollywood.
have to watch it.
Yeah, it's worth
So,
watching. Yeah, there's a couple people on the Facebook page that say it's one of their favorite documentaries.
oh,
So,
nice. Okay.
uh, but yeah, it was definitely a good one to revisit again for choose view and review, and I'm glad they picked it. I'm still pondering on what we're going to do next. For one,
Well,
I'm
we got
trying to
some
get some
interviews lined up.
we're
So
trying
maybe.
we're trying to line up yet and break it up a little bit. I think the next one will be an interview. I'm not too sure which way we'll go, but we got some interesting people lined up for that. So.
I think maybe for the holiday season we should list some holiday horror movies.
Well, you know what? There is some Thanksgiving ones that are really bad. Did you ever see
Well,
Did you ever see the Pilgrim?
never saw that one, but I've seen part one and I think maybe two or Thanksgiving with the turkey.
The turkey, yeah. Or can we throw in Poultrygeist in that one? Did you
Oh
ever see that?
gosh, no,
That
I
was
never
so
saw that
bad.
one.
That was
But
bad.
I was thinking like Christmas movies. I mean, there's so many great
Oh
ones.
yeah,
You have Christmas Evil, Black Christmas, Silent
Silent
Night,
Night.
Deadly Night,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
that's if anything,
Wasn't
uh,
there a killer snowman? Wasn't it Jack Frost
Jack
or
Frost, yeah, not to be
yeah,
confused with the Michael Keaton one.
yeah,
So,
exactly, exactly. Yeah, we should do
um,
that. We should do that.
yeah, we'll do that at the end of maybe do it mid-November or
Yeah,
well, it is mid-November.
we'll come to terms on which ones to choose. We'll pick five and
Yeah.
then have those guys on the Facebook page choose. So yeah,
Yep.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, well, this has been a
Yep.
great episode. I've learned now. I really want to watch a documentary. You have my interest peaked. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Stephen King is again one of those founding fathers of '80s horror. And there's so many great films to watch. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how many I love. I mean,
yeah.
I love Christine. Cujo is an underrated one. That's one of my top three. And then The Shining and Carrie and
About
but yeah,
Graveyard
there were.
Shift.
Oh no, I even tried to watch it again, and
It's all around bad.
oh god, I
Yeah.
didn't even. But yeah, I mean, there are some bad ones. And then his standard like Stand by Me and Shawshank Redemption, and he's just such a
The
talented
Green
guy.
Mile. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, just a talented guy all around.
yeah,
He's like one I would love to sit down and have a beer with.
Oh my gosh. Like, I just want to know, like, when it comes to a writer of that magnitude, what was your child like? Where do you come up with
Yeah.
this stuff? Like, there'll never be another Stephen King,
No, no.
not in
I think
our
a lot
lifetime for
from
sure.
what I was listening to on the documentary. He travels around. He did travel around Maine a lot and got his inspiration from long walks. Long
Hmm.
walks in the woods, long walks on trails, and talking to people. So, obviously the paranormal thing is very big with him and, evil and good and what have you. So, maybe it's a lot of just old, ghost stories being told around a campfire,
Yeah.
but the way he depicts things is just amazing, the way he thinks. And
Hmm.
because a lot of stories that people do just don't relate to film, and
Right.
there's always rewrites and and like how can we turn a book and cut out all that fat and just get to the basics. But yeah, this one was one that wasn't supposed to happen. Like it was sat on a shelf, and it was like people were actually starting to poo-poo Stephen King's movies. They're on their way out. They're on their way
Yeah.
out. And this probably was one of the last good horror ones that he did.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's what close to the end of the 80s, and like I said, the majority of the book adaptations were miniseries for ABC or CBS, and I think they only like in the 2000s up until we got it. I think there was only one adaptation, which was Dreamcatcher.
That was horrible.
Yeah,
that was really bad.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the book was better, but that movie was just.
Oh, I forgot they remade Firestarter too.
I haven't seen that yet. Have you seen it? No. I didn't love the original. I'll be honest. I didn't love the originals. When you saw the fireball flying down the wire.
Yeah.
But Cat's Eye was great.
I love Cat's Eye, especially the intro where it's like the Cujo dog chasing after the cat, and then it's going through town, and they run in front of the Christine car.
They showed Atlantic City, and us being from Atlantic City, remember that one segment?
I was like, this is too clean for Atlantic City.
That's so
I mean,
bad.
the only story I like, I mean, overall, it's a great
the troll.
That little troll freaked me out as a kid.
There's a guy on Etsy that makes those
really
trolls. Yeah, they're big bucks, like 300 or 400, but he stands like yay high, but that's creepy as hell.
Yeah,
because I remember that story as a kid. My mom telling me, because we had a young niece in the house, my brother's daughter, and we had a cat, and they said never give a bottle to a child in the house with a cat at night because it pools around their mouth, and the cat will come and lick and steal your breath. And have a child suffocate, because if a cat is lapping, it throws off the kid's breathing.
Okay.
And so that whole segment of the troll stealing the breath, remember, of Drew Barrymore, and they were going to blame the cat. So there is folklore behind that old wives' tale of a cat stealing breath.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great episode, that one. I mean, I like the James Wood one too, with him
the smoking.
Yeah.
I was like,
oh gosh, what was the bad guy's name? Oh gosh,
that watched him.
Yeah. But yeah,
no, that was a great one. That's that too felt like it was made for TV. That felt like it was made for TV. But I think the top one made for TV for me that still haunts me to the day is Salem's Lot.
For sure. Yeah,
that is the most frightening vampire in any movie that I've ever seen, and he was taken from the Nosferatu, the original. And if you see that guy out of makeup, it was very minimal makeup they added to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look up the actor as playing. He looks, but that because that was made for TV, and we watched everything back then.
Yeah.
And when the little boy was knocking, let me in. Scratching on the window. And,
Stacey Lee represents them.
Oh, really?
At Chiller, they had a little for like a photo op.
Oh, I saw that. The window.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was terrifying. And then I guess the latest movie that they just did for King was Dr. Sleep, which was all right, a sequel to The Shining. My
favorite part was when he went back to the hotel.
Yeah. I love Ewan McGregor. He really doesn't do any wrong. But I didn't know it till after I watched it the second time. But the flashback of the guy that played Jack Nicholson was the kid from E.T. They used him.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I'll have to go back and watch it.
Ewan McGregor sitting at the bar like his dad was, and he's talking to his dad.
Okay.
That's I can't think of the actor's name from E.T. The boy, Elliot.
Yeah, why can't I think? Gosh, it'll come to me right after we.
Yeah, it's him with long hair. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, well, he's probably the same age as Jack when Jack made
probably.
The film.
Probably. But
Yeah.
so this was fun. Stephen King, what's not to love, So
No,
yeah,
no, you can't go wrong with King.
nope.
So, all right. Well, again, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Choose View and Review. Again, this was the fans picked it. The fans, the followers picked it. Stephen King,
Yeah.
Pet Cemetery. We're going to change it up for the holiday season. Maybe get some good old classic Christmas ones in there. And again, we're going to have some interviews coming up. Dave had reached out to a couple of people. I just got to give Dave my schedule so you can talk with them. But again, if you want to follow us, Dave, on Facebook, where can you find us?
You can find us on Facebook on the third channel, Home of Horror.
Home
We
of,
also,
not for, of.
I don't know why that's so hard for us, but Home of Horror. And we are on Instagram now.
Yes.
And Brian, we are formatted also on podcast with Spotify and anybody
Spotify.
else. Yeah.
Not anyone else yet. I'm still working on it. I just don't have much time to do it. I guess Anchor lost this deal where they just distributed it for everyone. But
Right. I like Spotify. To be honest with you, until you introduced me to it, I didn't have Spotify.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
but now I'm listening to Lauren Marie's podcast.
Oh yeah, not the final girl.
Not the final girl. I listen to
Yeah.
her on my long drives. to
There's
and from work.
some great podcasts. If you want some, I can send you some good horror ones.
Yeah, do it.
A really good podcast, and they've been around for years, is The Last Podcast on the Left.
Okay.
And they talk about anything and everything, like true crime, conspiracy theories, horror. So that's a good one.
Gotcha.
I'm listening to right now Hollywood's Haunted, and they actually do like the death tours, like in Hollywood, and then they so I'll send you some links and whatnot. But yeah, we're on Anchor and Spotify right now. I've tried doing like Google, and it's just I don't know what I'm not doing right or wrong, so I just had a little bit more time on it. But
I think too, as this hopefully will grow a little bit more because we're starting to rank up there in numbers on the Facebook page. We should visit some haunt places like we were saying, Amityville or Sleepy Hollow. Maybe we could do some live stuff there.
Well,
stuff,
Irene was last weekend. She was up in Westfield, New Jersey last week, and that's where the Watcher House is.
Oh,
and she was 12 minutes from the house, but she didn't get a chance to swing by because a storm.
Did you get to watch it yet?
Nah, I didn't watch it. I just don't understand how they're going to make a second season out of it.
You know what? I was, and everybody loved it, but being from Jersey and knowing the story, they've altered it in a way, and I don't want to spoil it, but they've altered it in a way where they pulled in another true crime story to make it more appealing from New Jersey, which I think didn't take place too far away from that house. But I'm like, this is really odd. But it was made for Hollywood viewing, and it don't go into it thinking it's like a true crime story.
Okay.
It's depicted like a series for
right. All right.
But it wasn't my favorite.
Okay. Yeah, it's on my list. I'll probably watch it at work or something. I'm actually, before we sign off, I'm finishing up The Offer about the making of The Godfather, which is on Paramount Plus, which is really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
That's a good one. It has a great cast in it. All right. Until next time, I am Brian. This is Dave, and we are the Third Channel, Home of Horror.
Thank you.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.